All right, welcome back to the next Silhouette Studio tutorial. This will be the first tutorial that I'll be doing where we'll be actually using the print and cut feature. I won't be doing it the traditional way per many requests. I do not use registration marks, and so I'll be showing how I go about doing that by doing a sheet of stickers. So we'll be doing a tutorial with Silhouette Studio. We'll be going through the print process and how I do that, and then into the cutting process, and again, how I do that without registration marks. So without any further delay, let's get into it. So I've got my page of stickers set up on this tab here, but to avoid confusing anyone who's relatively new, I wanted to show how I set up my page kind of from scratch. So when you launch your app, you're going to get this screen here, generally with the matte enabled and the 12 by 12 default that is here. And like we've talked about before, this information is in this little page icon in the top right of your toolbar. So the first thing we're going to do is choose the appropriate size of your sticker paper, which generally is not 12 by 12. I'm in America, so generally we're going to get the 8.5 by 11 inch document, but if you're doing A4 or another size, you can select from the pre-selected ones, or you can custom select and maybe you have like a 5 by 7 or something interesting. So I'm going to go with an 8.5 by 11 because that's what my paper is today. And you'll see it shows in relation to our Silhouette mat where our paper will be located, which is in the top left. If you're using an aftermarket or third-party mat, it may or may not line up with that top corner. So far, I've only used the official Silhouette mats, so I'm not sure how the others compare. So keep that in mind. If you're using this method, you'll want to figure out where this top corner point is in relation to your mat, that yours may be drawn differently. So now that we have our page set up to the size of our sticker paper, a lot of my stickers have white outlines. You'll see my cut lines here around the stickers. I have some that are on the edge of a color, but more often than not, I have this white outline. So for me, I like to change the color of my page, like the display. Obviously, it doesn't change the color of our paper, but it makes it easier to see when we have these white outlines. So again, in this page setup menu, we have some media colors here. You can go through the little color selector if you want really specific. Usually I just pick anything to make it not white. That way when I drag my white image over here, it's much easier to see where I am in the page. And the last thing I do in this page setup menu is I choose this little tick box or check box for show print border. And what that does is put this little gray line, and those are the margins for your print. So I don't know if it'll show it with nothing on the page. It does. So in the page, the little print preview here, this line is as far as the printer will let me go. So if I go beyond that, it will cut off my image. So to avoid doing so, I turn on this print border option to add this gray line. That way I know I'm not going off of my usable portion of the page. And to show that, I've got this little sticker that I drew up over here. And again, see, I've got that white outline, so if my page is white, it can be a little harder to tell what's going on, especially since I often will disable the cut line color, so it looks like this, because I find it a little less distracting when I'm moving stickers around. Then if I'm moving this that's white on white, it can be much more difficult to tell than, say, if I have a gray page. This is now very easy to see the edge of my white sticker design. So with that, I can move up into my corner here and see this print border, this margin on our page will cut off our design. So if I put it something like that, it looks like it's on our piece of paper. But if we go to our print preview, you'll see that it has cut off both the top and the side of our image. So that's why I enable this print border feature, just so it's a little easier to get it lined up. And you can zoom in. You can get as close as you want, as long as just a hair below that gray line, and then you'll get your whole sticker design within your page. And same thing, we can move it to the left as well. And you can always use the keyboard like we've done before and go up, down, left, or right using your keyboard arrows to get as close or far away as you want. And then also to maximize space on my page, remember that we can use our little rotate green dot here at the top. Maybe with an image like this one, maybe it's more space saving to put this end up. That way we can recess something into this area. So depending on your stickers, you may want to rotate and move them around. With something like this, I might put it over here and use the side of the page a bit more and maximize this space. So we'll go back to my project, which is going to be overwhelming for a second, because I was getting my page ready for printing. And so we got a couple things going on here. Just like we just did, I've got a bunch of white outlined stickers, and they're pretty straightforward. Now we have white sticker paper and a white outline on our sticker design. So the accuracy of this cut really is not that important. Obviously we want it close. You don't want, a 1/4 inch gap between the black and the edge of your sticker on this side and like a 3/4 inch gap on this side. But as long as it's relatively close, it will look good because we'll have a nice white border around our sticker. I wanted to show, however, with a sticker like this guy, this one has no white border. I've just done a black outline around the perimeter. And if I turn off my cut line, that one, so we don't get the little red haze around it, you can see it's just a black line around the outside, which is a great look for a sticker, especially one with lots of colors like this. I really like when it's a clean edge. But if your Cameo, or if you're using a Cricut or something else, is off just a hair, you'll end up with kind of a white halo around your sticker. And maybe it's slightly left to right or top to bottom as far as where it favors. So maybe you'll get like a white haze on all your top edges, and it'll be undercut a little bit on the bottom. It'll cut into the black. So a way to fix that is if you select your sticker, let me move them off the page for a moment. We want to have, they call it a bleed area, so it bleeds the ink outside of your image. That way, if there is a slight inconsistency in your cut, which is to be expected, even on professional grade machines, you're going to get slight imperfections and inconsistencies where it may be a millimeter to the left versus to the right. So we want to add extra color. That way when we make our cut, we have a little bit of wiggle room or leeway to not make our sticker look unprofessional. So what I like to do is go over to the side here like we've done before and use our offset feature. And I do a regular offset, not the internal. And you'll see we've created a cut line to the outside here. And that's a reasonable amount of space. I'm going to go with that. We'll apply. And in this case, my outline in this image that I've done is black. So I'm going to go with black so it matches. So we have now a sticker that looks something like this. If I select all of this and put it back, if I take a peek at our Send tab, I've made a mess of him here with so many cut lines. But you'll see we have our cut line here, and I can turn off, I both selected, turn off this outer one, so do no cut, and it'll cut in the middle. So if we do have a little bit of variation or deviation from our line, sorry, if it cuts a little bit wide, we don't get that white mark over here because we now have black ink that will be printed. And if it cuts just a little bit inside, at least we're still in our black. So we can have a little bit of fluctuation in our cut and still have a nice black border all the way around our image. So that's how I do that. And then usually I'll group these all together just so I don't accidentally move the sticker or the back, that little background black line that we've added from one another. And then the last thing I wanted to show is how I prep a sticker like this one. That if we take Gunther here, and keep in mind, I'm not going to, police everybody, but just a fair warning that doing this with something you don't own can be a copyright issue. So this is for educational purposes. Use it at your own risk. Especially if it's something like your own art, like I used a reference material and made the dog with the noodles here. So it was very much inspired by someone else's art, but it is my own made art. All the other art here I have made from scratch, again, using references and inspiration, but this is all my own work, rather than this being a QR code for business. So this is the only design that I have not made. This is just a standard JPEG image from Google in this case as an example. So what I would do is choose our trace menu here on the right. Again, that kind of butterfly image or whatnot. Choose to select our trace area and just make sure that everything that you want to make a sticker is within our box. And like before, I always bring my scale all the way down. It gets rid of some of the choppy edges. And then bring your threshold up. I basically go with, oops, loading for a second. Usually with stickers like this, I go all the way to the top and then I just bump down as much as I need. So what I want to do is get rid of any of the little fuzziness like this anywhere outside of my image. That way I get as much selected as possible. So I'm just going to bring it down one at a time until I have no extra fuzziness or distractions. There we go. That way we get the most selected possible in our perimeter. And then we've talked about this before, but we're going to do trace and detach here on the bottom. And what that will do is kind of cut the outline and separate it from the background of that JPEG image. So now if we move Gunther over, he's now no longer connected to this background piece, which we don't obviously want to print. So you can just delete that. And he looks pretty good. However, he's not done. That if we take our page, oh, I turned it off of gray. Let me bring it back to gray. Page settings, page gray. If we bring him over, what you will find, because the trace feature is very powerful, but it is not perfect, is around his little perimeter here, you can see there's a little bit of white. So if we were to cut this, the outline where the cut is going to try to be made is on the outside of this white line, which obviously we don't want white. We want the black outline in this case to be the edge of our sticker. And that's why he's not quite ready to be printed and cut yet. So again, what I would do, very similar to what we did with the dog, is we're going to use our offset. This time, however, we want to cut in because we want to go inside of that white imperfection, or I guess imperfection, in our trace feature. So we want to do an internal offset. That way our cut is inside, and you can see now it's completely within the black, and that's what we want. If you have anywhere that it's close and you're worried it's not enough, just increase your distance a little bit. That way you're in whatever color your outline is. In this case, it's black. If everything looks good, which mine looks pretty good as is, I'll choose Apply. There we go. So now we have this cut line inside. And what I want to do is select both. That's selecting, in this case, Gunther, and that new line that we created. You can see we have two little boxes. They're both selected. And we want to subtract our new line from Gunther to cut off this bad edge. So we do that here in our Modify tab. And we want the difference between the two, which is intersect, because we want to cut off what's outside of the selection. So if we choose intersect, you can see it's now chopped that little edge. And if we bring him back to our page, you'll see that that kind of fuzzy, gross edge with the white is all gone. And now we have a nice, clean, black border. And now we need to do the exact same thing we did with my dog image. One, to make the black edge a little bit wider or thicker so it fits the rest of the drawing. You can see the black here. It would look strange if this was really thin. And again, we don't want to risk any kind of variation on the cut where it might touch like his belly right here if it's not quite perfect. So we want to thicken up our black line and then give ourselves that little bit of bleed distance so we don't have any issues. So with him here, we're going to go to offset, just like we did with the dog. Get it so it's back to the outside. That looks perfect to me. So we'll apply. Let's add our color. This one we're doing black as our outline. That looks perfect. I'm going to group it all together. And then from here, this is kind of the standard thickness of line that I cut off with the internal offset, this amount, and then I put it back now without the white fuzz. So now I want to give myself that little bit of bleed distance just so I don't have any issues. So if I offset again, that looks good. And black. Hopefully you're all with me, because that's a little confusing if you haven't done it before. But basically, we cut out the garbage, and then we put back black in its place. And now we've done that little bit of bleed distance. That way, the Silhouette or your Cricut or any other cutter will try to cut this line. And if it makes any slight mistakes, it shouldn't miss enough to cut outside of the black. And if it does waver just a little bit to this inside edge, you've still got enough of a black line so that you're safe on both sides. Obviously, he's now way too big for my sticker paper, so let's bring him down in size. I'm going to group him for a moment so I can see my scale. Let's see what it looks like 4 inches tall. And make sure if you're scaling a sticker that your little lock is turned on so he doesn't get all distorted. That looks reasonable. Maybe I'll rotate him so he hopefully fits. Oh, not quite. He's inside the page, but he's not inside of our print margins. So he unfortunately is too big. You can see that here. He's just outside. So I gotta make him a little smaller, or I could potentially play with rotations and things and see if I can squeeze him in here. Which I almost can. Only his nose is sticking over now. So I could finesse him in here with just a little bit of effort. Something like that. Now you'll see he's completely inside of our margins, and he's not overlapping any of the other stickers. So I'm okay with where he's at. He's going to be a big sticker, but I like him. He's fun. It'll end up just going on my wall, probably. I like a little wall of stickers over here, since I'm not going to sell him, since he is a copyrighted image. So with that, I've kind of manipulated and moved my stickers around. You can see I've got just a hair inside of my print margins. That way everything is looking good. I always do kind of a final check to make sure I didn't have any oversights, especially in spots like this where I got really close. I don't want to cut off an edge. This being a square, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but obviously I wouldn't want this, like here, and have a little sharp, hard edge. So making sure that everything is inside of your page margins, which looks pretty good. So from there, we go up to the top to our little print icon, which will give us our preview. And again, it's kind of hard to tell at this point, which is why I turn on that border line, the margin line, because since these have white outlines, you can't tell how close these get. Because obviously, again, our paper is white, despite it being shown gray in the software. So like this was really close here, pretty close here, and really close here, but it doesn't look that way in the preview. So that's why I do the gray image in Silhouette and make it very clear, and then just double check that it looks pretty good here as it is. If everything looks right, which between the two pages we verified and it looks pretty good to me, we go to print. And this part's going to differ a little bit depending on your printer from my experience, but it has my printer selected. If you have other options, which I have, looks like 5 other options at the moment, make sure you're getting your correct printer. I happen to have the EcoTank 3760, so I have that selected. You'll want to go to your preferences. This is an important part if you want good looking stickers. That if you just push print, you're going to get the defaults, which are not great because generally they're defaulted for Word documents, not photo quality images. So what we need to make sure is that our settings are looking good. So you've got your paper type, you've got a few different choices. Some people I've seen choose the photo paper options. However, for me at least, I don't have a lot of success with these. I don't know if it's because they're slightly oversaturated, but I've had a little bit of smearing issues when I choose photo papers. So I choose the bright white paper option because my stickers are bright white. So although it might not sound like the correct option, for me, this plain paper or bright white paper has been the best. But you can always experiment with your papers and settings and see how they do. But yeah, I tried glossy photo and the semi-gloss photo, and they both, to me, it just seemed like they were too easy to smudge and smear the ink. So I've had good luck with plain paper, so I'll keep that there. Here's where we want to make a change. It says the quality is set to standard, and we want the best we can get. So you can choose high, or some printers like mine have a more settings option, and you'll see high isn't actually the highest. So I will drag it over to the best quality that I can get and choose OK. It's kind of confusing because now it says more settings instead of like the best. But as long as you're on that highest setting, you should be good to go. We're not doing any two-sided printing. We're not doing any multi-page. It's only one page anyway. And then we can choose more options here at the top and just make sure everything looks good. Sometimes it defaults to rotate 180 degrees, which doesn't really matter in this instance because it would just be upside down. But making sure that if you want it mirrored or not mirrored, that it's not incorrectly selected. In this case, I have writing and things that need to be this direction, so I don't want the image mirrored. I've had it selected automatically before, so I always like to come in and check just in case. And then once you're done and everything looks good, you've got the proper page size, you've got your proper page type or your paper type. We want the best quality, it's in color, and we verified that it's not mirrored for this job. We then want to hit OK, and then you would choose to print. I've had requests for people to see it through the whole process, so I'm going to stop the video at this point, cut over to my phone and do a recording of it printing. It won't be the most exciting thing to watch, and I'll probably speed it up a little bit just so it's not really boring. But people have shown quite a bit of interest in the actual printing process. So let me switch over. I'm going to print this off, and then we'll continue on with lining it up on our mat and getting it loaded into the Cameo and ready to cut. All right, so everyone who's interested, this is going to be the printing process. I'll try to remember to put in a bookmark if you don't want to see this part, because it's going to be kind of boring, that we can skip ahead. But for those who asked for it, we're going to have it as part of the video. So I'm going to choose print. Confirm my settings real quickly. Make sure everything looks the way that I want. That's good. Preferences. I'm on my quality settings. And print. It's processing. It's just a moment. It's going to be a very slow process because we're doing high quality. Usually while this is printing, I would be getting my laminate ready. But since people were curious about the printing process, I will just let this go for now. I'll do less multitasking than normal. It's finally to where I can see it in there. It's making its way out. It's a very slow process when you go full quality. If you go high quality instead of the highest, it's probably about twice as fast. So if you don't need absolutely flawless stickers, stuff for like little kids who are just excited for stickers, you can speed up the process a lot over this highest selection. But since generally most of my stickers are either for friends, be it sold or given, I like them to look the best that they can. But we're getting close. I can see the QR code coming. It's coming out there. There we go. So yeah, like I said, they're not the most interesting thing to watch, most exciting anyway. We'll let it do its thing, and then we'll prepare the laminate once it's done, and get on to cutting. Or that's doing its thing there. I've gotten some requests for my workstation, or my setup here. So just to kind of show you what I'm working with, I have my, let me zoom out a little bit, kind of hard to see. I've got my main screen for media and entertainment, which I turned off because I'm recording a video. I have my main computer monitor, which currently shows the recording software for this video. I have my drawing tablet, which is an XP Pen 24 Artist 24 Pro for anyone who wants specifics. So that's XP Pen there. And I've got my drawing pen off to the side. I've only had this for a fairly short period of time, but I love it so far. I've got my printer set up. I've got my Cameo. At the moment, I have my laminator here since we're going to be using it in the video. Normally, I have it off to the side over here on the bottom tray of my TV stand, so it's out of the way. But I want it all together for the video so everyone can see and have better lighting with my lamp set up here. I've got better lighting to show what I'm doing. I've got my heat press here. And then avoid my mess. I'm doing some moving and reorganizing and whatnot. But I have these two. They're actually two... Oh, squeaky chair, sorry. They're actually two like nightstands for a bedroom. So it's a nightstand with a drawer and the same nightstand with a drawer just sitting on top. And that allows it to hold the rolls of vinyl so they don't roll out. I can make my little pyramid and they don't roll off the edge of the tables. So I have my HTV on the top. I've got vinyl rolls of permanent vinyl that I've started already, like loose pre-cut rolls. All my unopened rolls are all separate, and I've got a couple down here as well. And then my tools and miscellaneous things. I've got sticker things, so like my laminate is here. I've got foam tape for shadow boxes and whatnot. I've got my lower drawer has all my printable vinyls and sticker papers. And then I have the drawers on this side in the desk with my scraps. So I have permanent vinyl scraps. And then in the bottom, I've got my cardstock scraps. So I've had quite a few people ask, because I do so many different things, what my setup looks like. And this is what it looks like. It's nothing crazy, but I'm happy with it. I have kind of like a horseshoe shape going on. So we've got our sticker paper is now fully printed. And I usually let that sit for a couple minutes because the ink is wet, at least for a short period of time. I have been fairly impressed with the ink on this printer, that it seems to dry faster than ones I've used in the past. But I still like to give it some time. All right, now we're back into the Silhouette Studio side of things. We're going to get everything set up so that we can do our cutting. So we still see everything here on our page, and now it's very, very important. We move nothing. Our page has now been printed in this layout. So if we move anything, it's going to cut incorrectly. So now we want to now go to our send screen on the top right. We haven't gotten this far before. So this is going to tell our machine how and where to cut. And we just want to make sure, since we're doing stickers, that we're only cutting on the outside. We obviously don't want to cut each individual line in, say, this QR code, or each line of the text and things like that. We would have a big jumbled mess. So it may look something like this to start. Obviously, we don't want all these cut lines because that would be a messy sticker. So if your sticker looks like this, you're probably on the default cut. We want to choose cut edge. That way it cuts the outside edge of your sticker design. And you want to just kind of make sure that they're all set up that way. And same with like our dog. I fixed that one. Oh, goodness. That was fun. I was zooming in. I'm not sure what just happened, so I just undid it. But I fixed this one because it was set to cut. And now I obviously have all these lines that we don't want. So just choosing, in this case, we can do... We've got the two lines. This is where we want to be careful. Because we have this line and this line. We don't want to cut this outer line. That's just so we have that wiggle room in our cut. So if you look like this, that's the wrong line. So make sure that you have your design selected, which I just saw move. Your design selected, and choose your cut edge. And you'll see this one now is highlighted, which is perfect. That's what we want. And we want a no cut on this outer edge. Because we don't want to cut the black line. We just want that so we have a little bit of extra play. So this one looks as it should. The white ones really, as long as they're not cutting inside your sticker, don't really matter much. Because again, the sticker paper is white, so if it cuts out here, you still get white around your sticker. So these are less of a concern. I look at those quite quickly. Oh, and we can see there's two lines here on our Gunther cut. So we want to make sure that we have this set properly. So we got cut edge. There we go. So because we added that little black line, it was set to cut both. So again, now we have that little bit of leeway. So we have, hopefully, no problems. Otherwise, we got white sticker, white sticker. See, only these two have the outlines. It looks like they're now both set correctly, where we have that little bit of extra play. So this looks great. And so now what we want to look at is that positioning on our mat and make sure that ours is set up the exact same way. So I want to make sure that our page is, again, in that very top left corner. Again, if you're using like a Cricut mat, for example, that starting point may not be in the same place. There's also I think they're Ninkata mats. I forget at the moment. A popular one on Amazon for the silhouette. I don't know how that position differs. So make sure to test before you jump in and ruin all your sticker paper. But we want it in that top left corner according to what Silhouette sees as the top left, just like it is here on the mat. So I'm going to jump back to real life instead of the Silhouette Studio page and get that all set up on the mat, and we can look through that process as well. All right, so now we're going to do our laminate. I personally use this Avery brand laminate, and I've been pretty happy with it so far. It's a little bigger than my page, though. This is 9 by 12 instead of my 8.5 by 11 piece of sticker paper. So I'm going to cut this down, but one thing to keep in mind, at least with this brand, is at the top here, it says peel here, and there's a little tab to make this easy to peel. So I want to make sure when I cut my length, I'm cutting this end off. That way it's still easy to access that little tab. So I had to cut this to size. So I'm at 9 inches wide. I need 8.5. So I've got to cut 1/2 inch off my length, or off my width rather. This part's not entirely necessary. You can do it full size because my laminator will do up to 12 inches. So doing 12 inches of laminate on an 8.5 by 11 will work. But I found it a little awkward. And so this is the way that I've started doing it, and I've had a little more success. And then again, I want to be careful not to do my peel end, so I want to cut this side of it. I'm going to get this to 11 inches, so cut down 1 inch. Oh, sorry, my printer's going into sleep mode, making some noise right next to the speaker. So we'll get 1 inch on this. Something like that's looking pretty good. There we go. Get our cutter out of the way. Grab our sticker page. And I usually just lay this down and make sure I didn't make any major mistakes. And then you can look, if I line it up, there's just a little hair wide. So it's 8.5 by 11 sticker paper, and I did like 8 3/4 maybe by 11. But it's going to be much closer when I apply my laminate to my sheet of stickers. Alright, sorry for the weird cut there. I got a phone call, interrupted my video. So I've got my sticker sheet, which is looking pretty good. Hard to get in the shot, but they look pretty good. I've got this cut to size, and we're lining up looking pretty nice. So this might be kind of hard to see because I'm probably going to be in the way, but I'll show you what I do. I start by peeling that little tab that I mentioned here on the top. It's just pre-cut to make it very easy to access the adhesive. And then what I do is I get my page lined up so that way nothing's being left out, not covered by the laminate sheet. So get that looking pretty nice. And then once it is, I kind of start in the middle, like when you apply vinyl, and kind of push out on my adhesive. That way the top of my page now has the adhesive on it, and my laminate page is stuck to the sticker sheet there at the top. The laminator step, at least for this laminate, is not required, but I like the reassurance that it's pushed down nicely. I've got a hot selection if you're doing traditional adhesive like the sleeves, and I have a cold setting, which is what I'm going to use here, so I'm going to turn that to cold. It's automatically ready because there's no heat needed. I then make sure there's no hair or anything. I usually just give it a quick blow, make sure there's no hair or dust, because if you get hair on here and then laminate it, obviously you've ruined whatever sticker is underneath that hair. So just making sure there's nothing on my sheet. It looks pretty good. And then you want to start, like I said, this might be kind of hard to see because I don't have a whole lot of desk space, and I'm trying to do this and not ruin it. But I try to get this started. Easier said than done in this little workspace at the moment. Something like that. If you need enough that you can feed it into the little laminator, which I don't have a lot of space for. Well, let's see if we can get it kind of pushed in here a little bit. Let me sit myself back down. It's easier normally, but doing it for the video, so we'll suffer through it this one time. Get him pushed in. Let's get him to catch. Is he gonna catch? It's kind of, it was a super cheap one, so he's a little finicky getting him lined up. Come on. Why are you being a pest? Come on. It's always a little awkward. This is worse than normal. Get in there, you. There it goes. And then just make sure to pull the backing out of the way. That way it doesn't get sucked into the machine, because it will ruin your project. I made that mistake once when I wasn't paying attention. So I just pull my backing out of the way, just keeping it off my stickers. Hopefully I didn't get any wrinkles in wrestling with it, with trying to get it in the video so you could see a little bit. If so, not the end of the world. I can always print another one. There we go. We'll let that suck into the machine. Don't crash into anything. Give it some room. There we go. And turn that guy back off. And put him out of the way for a moment. I usually just take a quick overall inspection, make sure nothing looks bad. I'm a little worried this time around, but it looks like despite the struggle to get it in the video, I don't see any real problems. That's good. No hairs, no creases. I've got a little speck of dirt right there, unfortunately. But otherwise, we're looking pretty good. All right, we'll try a different angle this time, see if we can see a little better. This little janky tripod is having some issues. Let's see. It's all I have to work with, so I'm trying to make it work the best I can. All right, that seems reasonable. So we've got our sticker sheet here, and I want to make sure it's in the same orientation in person that it was in the software. So we had the QR code in the top left, so we don't want to load it this way or it's going to make all the wrong cuts. So making sure we match exactly the screen. That way, I guess nothing has moved, and we want to line it up in that top left corner of our mat. And again, even though it's kind of hard to see, but you can see I've got laminate on the outside here. Make sure that we're lining up the actual page, because again, Silhouette software, the Silhouette Studio software, knows that we're using 8.5 by 11 inch paper. So this extra laminate is going to go outside of our line. We want the paper to line up perfectly like it does in the software. So as I'm on the Silhouette mat, I just line it up right on the line. And right on the line on this side. I'm just a hair to the left, so I'm going to take an extra moment and straighten it. Because the extra 2 seconds is worth it for good results. And I just kind of make sure we're pushed down, especially since my mat's kind of worn out at this point. It's not all that sticky, so I make sure to give it a good press so nothing moves on me. And so now we can see, kind of, that we're in the corner of the mat, right along the line, and same thing on the top. We're right across the little grid line that continues right here. So if you're on the Silhouette mat, it should look just like this. Paper tucked in that top left corner. And just like the software shows, we've got the extra room around our edges. And then again, just as important as it is to line up positioning here, when you get to your hardware, which I was cutting vinyl off a roll, so I had to readjust my rollers. It's just as important to get this lined up on the cutter, because obviously if you have it too far left or too far right, the knife is going to cut the way that it knows it should, but this isn't in the correct position. So make sure you've got it, the little gray line here, that your mat is right on the gray line. The edge of your mat should be like right in the middle. I have this extra little guide, which puts it in position. There's also a notch on this side. Make sure you're in the video. Yes. Let me move it in so you can see. There's also these notches on the machine here. And so if you don't have this handy guide that I 3D printed, when you get this lined up on the gray line right here, this edge of the mat will be tucked right into the edge of this little plastic groove. So it'll go in just like that. There it is. So it'll have this like little bit of a bump. It's not a full guide, but you'll know you're against that little bump and that you're in the right place. I'm going to put you back up here. Perfect, just save that time. So I'm going to get mine lined up. So against my little stopper and against the little line on this side. Even with the guide, I always like to double check, because occasionally you can slide, especially vinyl, it'll kind of slide under this sometimes. Well, like that, exactly, it slid under. So making sure that it's butted up to that and to here. That looks nice. And give it a load. Perfect. And I'm not going to go back to the screen record because this part's quick and easy. But again, we still have all of our stickers in the same place. We're in the top left. We've got the gap just like we do in real life. We want to choose our proper settings, which I have this pre-saved. I've already done my experimenting. You might have to experiment a little bit, but I'll show you what I'm using. Scroll down to the bottom to my presets. I have... Where's my setting? Laminated sticker paper is how I have it saved. So if I give that a click, you'll see now I'm on laminated sticker paper. That won't be yours by default. But what I am using, I'll get this tripod out of the way. I've got a, oh goodness, sorry. I've got a blade depth here of 6. Currently a force of 25. I've got my speed is kind of relative to your project. This doesn't have any crazy edges or curves, nothing super complicated. Maybe a little bit in the chopsticks. But you can go pretty quick on this. I could go faster if I want. 10 is about where I tend to go usually. And then with the sticker paper, I do 2 passes because I only cut through about 3/4 of the way if I only do one pass. So that's how I've got my settings done. Oh, and then because I haven't done this before, I'll show you as well. Down at the bottom, where's my mouse? There it is. You can see our machine is ready to go. You can do your test cutting. I already have, and be careful if you do. It'll test cut in the top left of your paper. So in this case, I have a sticker there. So if you're doing a test cut, be careful because you don't want to cut your sticker. Once you've got your settings dialed in, whether they're the same as mine or you've tested yours and found something different, then you'll choose the send option. And that will send this over to the machine. We're just going to cut out our designs. Again, you could go faster than I'm going. This is speed 6. If my designs aren't super complicated, which these ones aren't bad, I'll go up to 10. But I like going a little bit slower and just ensuring it doesn't make any mistakes. But there's nothing too crazy on this one. Let it do its thing. And it seems to be a little less noisy if I don't go super fast. It's still not quiet, but it's not quite as obnoxious. Almost done. We're on the duck, which should be the last thing. There we go. All right, important thing. Do not eject your mat, especially if you're still figuring out the settings on your sticker paper, laminated or not. You want to make sure that your cut has gone all the way through. You can see the cut line. It is definitely cut. But if this hasn't cut all the way through, it's still locked in the exact same position that we did the cut. So if you've only cut, say, halfway through, you can adjust your settings, push cut, and you'll suck it back in, and it'll overlap perfectly where you're already cut. If you eject this, the likelihood that it's in the exact same place is pretty slim. So I would make sure that it's hard to do one-handed. Let me set this down. Maybe. There we go. That while it's locked in, I like to pick up an end or an edge, a corner, whatnot, and just make sure that we're cut all the way through so our sticker has a clean cut. If so, then you can eject your mat without any problems. But if, say, this didn't cut through, make sure to leave it where it is, go into Silhouette software, increase your blade depth, and send it again. That way you get the same cut line without any imperfections. So I'm going to eject that. Let me point you down a little bit. Oh, there we go. And then we can take our outside portion off, kind of weed it, if you will. In this part, you can kind of go any speed you want, but I'm always a little careful. Even though we got a clean cut, I'm always worried something's going to go wrong. Just kind of my luck in life is things tend to go wrong, so I'm always a little careful. Just so we don't rip any edges or anything. Now they're laminated, they're decently thick. The regular sticker paper isn't that thick. You could rip it a lot easier. But especially with like the little spots around the chopsticks here, I just want to be a little careful so I don't do any damage. I would hate to ruin a sticker this close to being done. Peel off our edge. Oops, that one peeled the sticker off of the backing. There we go. So you get our weeded scrap garbage out of the way. Oh, that's a good example right there. So you can see here is where we cut our little black bleed line. And it looks like it's pretty consistent for the most part. There's a little bit of variation, like you can see like right here on the bottom is pretty thin. So it's a good thing we had the bleed there. And same thing on like the tail area over, oh goodness, trying to get you in the camera. On the tail side right here, there's very little of that black left. So that bleed definitely helped us out. So you can take a look. I got a little bit of the paper backing on here still. There we go. And I can take a peek at what we did. Let me get you up in the air so we can see. And now you can see that our cuts are looking pretty good. You can ignore this. That's backing from my sticker paper. That'll peel off when I get these off the mat. You see our cuts are looking pretty nice. And this is, again, no registration marks of any kind. This is just cut right on the mat. And everything's looking good to me. I don't see any errors, really. There is a tiny bit right here on his foot. If it'll focus, it's so small I can't even focus on it. There we go. Just a little bit on his foot right here. There's the tiniest bit on his foot right here. And the tiniest little bit on his little flipper right here. Otherwise, everything else is looking pretty good. So I could do a little bit wider outline, that bleed line, if you were concerned. There's no harm. You could make it an inch thick if you wanted. Obviously, it just cuts into more of your paper. But you could put a big, fat, thick line if you wanted, and then ensure that little imperfection like this would not be a problem. I'm happy with that, and I could even go back with my scissors if I want and clean up that little... I mean, it's literally like the thickness of a hair. It's very, very small. So I could clean that up if I want, but like our dog is looking real nice, and he was the other one with the outline. I don't see any problems on it. A couple get real close. Like here, there's just a little bit of black there on his cheek. We almost lost it. But everything's looking real good. I'm happy with all those. It'll probably bug my OCD though. I'll probably fix this foot. I'm not so concerned about these two, but I'll probably fix this one before I call it done. All right, so let's get these guys peeled off of here. Actually, just give them a roll. Roll them right off the mat, or roll the mat right off of them, rather. That gives me the best results without curling up your stickers. If you try to peel them off the mat, they tend to roll up a little bit. And again, just be careful as things come back on themselves that you don't rip an edge or anything. If you're laminating like I am, you have less of that as a concern, but I still wouldn't go crazy with them. Just roll our stickers right off of here. Some of these are kind of small, which makes them a little more awkward, but there we go. Get that flag off of there, little banner. There we go. A big QR code. And the last one. There we go. Let's get our mat out of the way. And we've got our stickers. Just flip them over and we can see what we got as our final results. Minus the paper backing stuck to them. There we go. A little duck. And our little race banner. There we go. Let's get the garbage out of the way. And zoom in for our kind of final look here. We've got all of our stickers. Looking real nice. No registration marks. No real issues. Like I said, the only imperfections, and even on the table, you really have to look for it. Obviously, if you stuck them to like a black, binder or something, you might see it, but you really can't. Zoom in a little bit instead. I mean, you have to really look. It's like right on the edge there, and part of that might even be the edge of the paper. So once he's actually just a sticker with the sticker backing, you may not even see that edge, but I'm probably still going to try to clean it up just a hair with my scissors. But other than that, everything looks great. And we get to use our whole sheet of paper, minus that little margin, because we didn't use the registration marks. So that's how I go about making my stickers. And just like usual, if we have any questions, concerns, comments, or otherwise, please feel free to let me know. And we will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.